Well, hello, be calm, be seated. I'm sure it's all fine. It's okay. Yeah, we are once again in the bunker. Don't worry, it'll turn out fine, I'm sure. There's been an incident and the schedule is janked. And so whatever we were going to do, we are not doing that. We're just down in the bunker and we're going to have to make do. Whatever we were going to cover, I'm sure we'll cover later. For now, we're just going to have to look and see what's available down here in the bunker. Waifu, where are all the other movies? There's only one movie down here. What have you done with the other films?
We're just going to have to watch Repo the Genetic Opera again.
Oh, no.
By the middle of the 21st century, organ failure had become a worldwide epidemic. But GeneCo was there to satisfy the demand for organ replacements. The problem is, if you miss a payment, GeneCo sends out the Repo Man.
I think I am to blame for stirring up a lot of the hype around this in the audience. I saw someone posting about it months ago, and I've just spent the last... Whenever I've been in chat, I feel like I've been prodding... Hello, darling
Hello,
boy.
Ted. Welcome to the bunker, which we are currently in.
I feel like I've spent the last few months stirring up enthusiasm for people to watch Repo, a cult classic, this generation's Rocky Horror Show. Maybe it's a pithy analysis of the dangers of unfettered capitalism. Who knows? We will explore that while we are in the bunker.
I don't believe a word of that. I know your game. Oh, it's anti-capitalism and dissent. Ooh, it was made by people who worked on Saw movies. Ooh, the editor is Kevin Goitert from Saw. No, I know what you're up to. I know why you chose this. Well, you aren't alone. Yes, several people have requested that we talk about Repo. So yeah, you're getting your way tonight. Let's go for it.
Let's crack into it. Well, first, I thought in the interests of, your stream is called Double Feature Horror Show. So, we do normally do a topic. And in recent months, you've been digging into the life and times of Vincent Price. And I thought, well, there's a cast member in Repo the Genetic Opera who is, a stalwart of horror, who's been in many, many horror films and has had a profound influence on our culture in ways that are too vast to really enumerate here. So I thought I'd just do a quick introduction to one of the most important and influential scream queens of our time, Paris Hilton.
All right, 1 hour, then I'm out of here. Well, I don't care what the radiation's like. 1 hour. Paris Hilton. Oh, I see. So the Vincent Price launched his career or really kicked into the horror icon mode with House of Wax. And you're like, well, I know another House of Wax grandee.
Exactly.
Oh,
The parallels just write themselves, really.
Paraslels.
The Paraslels.
Yeah, okay, go on. I'm up for it.
If you bring up the quiz.
Okay.
And invite Base Liz.
Oh, smooth. I like it. I hope there's a jingle.
I wish there were a jingle. This is quite a quickly cobbled together quiz show because obviously I was in the bunker hiding from the police after
the incident.
The incident and also some allegations, which I will never answer 30 years on. So anyway, that's a joke that really only Britbongs will get, I suspect, and Britbongs of a certain age. But anyway, we can now move to the next screen.
All right.
And that title should say Paris Hilton Scream Queen, but Scream Queen, you can edit this out if you edit it later, but who knows?
Yeah, we can roll it. Okay.
Cool. So it's a very short quiz. It's just 5 questions. I just want to take you through and see kind of your level of understanding of this icon of early 2000s horror.
I'm a Paris Hilton expert. I'm going into this with extreme confidence.
Good luck. All right, so next slide, please. Okay, what was Paris Hilton's first horror film role? Was it A, One Night in Paris?
One Fright in Paris?
B, House of Wax? C, 9 Lives? Or D, Repo the Genetic Opera?
9 Lives? Hang on. Oh, right. Okay, so House of Wax 2005. Repo is 2008. 9 Lives I haven't heard of.
It's a horror film starring her from 2002.
Oh, in that case.
Sorry, I forgot I was doing a quiz.
I'm going to go Really? I've never heard of that one.
What would you?
I'll take the L on that. I was going to go confidently for House of Wax. No, it's okay. I won't take the point on that one. I have principles.
I need to remember that I am a quiz master. This is why I wouldn't have been being. I was going to make some kind of Michael Barrymore joke, but I won't. The oxygen levels in here are getting quite dangerous, I think.
You should have been here for the Zardos stream.
I'm glad I wasn't. Yeah, so it's set in a Scottish mansion and it's a slasher, and I skimmed the plot summary, so I don't know whether she's the final girl or one of the first to go.
Wow.
But yeah, from 2002. She's
When was One Night in Paris? Was that the first one?
Admittedly, I didn't actually check the dates for that one. That was The Booby Trap.
Okay.
But there we go. Now I will remember that I'm doing a quiz. So the next question. Which of these plot twists does not happen in Paris Hilton's seminal work, The Hottie and the Nottie? Is it A, the romantic lead dumps Paris Hilton's character to date her less hot best friend, and she's okay with it? B, the romantic lead gets his friend drunk and hypnotizes him to make him date the Nottie, and the friend ends up chowing down on one of her infected toenails?
100% that is in a post-American Pie 2000s. 100% that is in there. Okay.
Cool. Or is it C? Paris Hilton's character is presented as a dumb blonde, but she's actually a sweetheart who runs a homeless shelter.
Does not happen. I mean, A feels like the one they would go for, but on the other hand, C kind of makes me think that's a little bit of the reputational reparation. I'm going to go with A.
A is, in fact, the conclusion to the film.
So there's no twist. They just do what you expect. Gosh darn.
So what
But I expect the twist. I'm like, what am I? Old millennial? I'm an old millennial. The subversion is my normal.
Well,
normal is subverting what I expect. Gosh darn.
Except in... I feel like it's problematic, certainly if you're a 2016 era SJW. Part of the plot revolves around a dentist who is also a part-time model, which therefore apparently qualifies him to be a cosmetic surgeon, giving surgery to Paris Hilton's friend and making her hot. So then the romantic lead basically dumps Paris Hilton for her now hot best friend.
Okay.
So
all right.
I'm not sure what the morals are here, but we're going to explore them in slightly more detail.
It's kind of like isn't that just a more surgical version of the Grease ending?
Kind of. Yeah, there's not much depth to it, I'll be honest.
Okay.
All right. Now I've got 4 excerpts from reviews here. So I'll read them out, and you need to tell me which one is not from a review of The Hottie or the Nottie, which did become a bit of a focus for me today, I'll be honest. So someone described something, whether it was this film or another, as about as funny as the anal struggle snuggle scene in The Warzone. Someone else described whatever they were reviewing as a fascist eugenicist tract. It's disgusting.
That's just reviewing my current book.
Then someone, this one could be a giveaway, or I may have changed names, you never know. But a crass, predictable, and ineptly staged gross-out comedy that serves little purpose beyond existing as another monument to Paris Hilton's vanity. And finally, did someone describe The Hottie or the Nottie as a fantasy of genocide, nuclear annihilation, and carnage?
I don't know. If anything was given that as a review, I'd be tempted. Nuclear annihilation. It's nuclear annihilation is one that's holding me back. I'm going to take the bait. The last one was not describing The Hottie or the Nottie. Surely there was no... How is there time for nuclear annihilation? Do they mean like the destructive impact on the family? Is that what's going on?
Potentially, yes. Potentially.
Did I actually get one right?
You did. I'm not going to name the book that's a review of because it's on several lists.
Right. Is it on my shelf?
Yes.
Let's move on.
Okay, so hang on, where's my... Oh, good, I have got the best question in still. All right, what was notable about the 2008 Golden Raspberries? Was it that A, Paris Hilton for once received no nominations? B, the Razzies rescinded their previous nomination for her role in The Hottie and the Nottie after it was alleged that her performance was affected by being part of such an appalling film and they didn't want to punish victims? Was it C, that actually she won in 2 categories, the Worst Actress for Hottie or Nottie and Worst Supporting Actress for Repo? Or was it D, she was nominated for an award and stunned everyone by turning up to receive it in person?
I think it's D. I think I remember this. Just like I remember the Hottie and the Nottie getting an F from the AV Club back in the day when that was tolerable. It is true, folks. That did happen. I'm going with D.
Sadly, you're wrong.
What? Oh.
I think that was Sandra Bullock turned up.
Oh.
But, you know, kudos to her. It was actually C. She won in 2 categories in 1 year because the Hottie and the Nottie and Repo were both out and available for awards in the same year.
Wow, you could have one night in Paris and make it a double bill. Nice.
That should be an illegal comment. So, yes.
All right.
Sadly, I mean, I think we'll get on to whether or not her performance in Repo is actually that bad.
Yeah. I want to say it's actually kind of cool that people turn up to the Razzies and accept the awards.
Yeah.
I approve of this.
I respect the kudos.
You respect the kudos.
Not the kudos, the cajones. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Chutzpah.
It's the incident. It's the chutzpah, I think, is what I was going for. All right. So, fun bit Paris Hilton lore for you.
She looks so shooped there.
It is a slightly terrifying picture, isn't it?
Yeah, gosh darn.
So, the National Lampoon's Pledge This was going to be Paris Hilton's official film debut after her home video stint. But thanks to various delays in production, which we may cover in a second, it ended up not coming out until after, I think, possibly even The Hottie or the Nottie. And no, certainly it didn't come out until after House of Wax, but yet still came out with Paris Hilton's debut film role on all the promotional materials. 9
lives getting absolutely snubbed by the sound of it then.
Exactly.
Oh, brutal.
I wish I'd not goofed that question, but life goes on. So, why is National Lampoon's Pledge This secretly based? Is it because A, the sorority at the centre of the film prioritises teaching young women to embrace their femininity and is credited with being the first place the phrase tradwife was used in popular culture?
This was popular.
Is it because... That's a fair question. Is it because B, the plot centres around a sorority leader letting in more Netflix-friendly members in a bid to meet the diversity criteria required to win a national award for Best Sorority? Is it C, the film directors wanted more nudity, but Paris Hilton put her foot down on the grounds that she didn't want to further corrupt the youth of America? Or is it D, interactive showings of the film allowed you to vote on the woodability of each character, displaying the changing scores throughout the evening?
Oh my, I kind of... Okay. I'm looking at the poster and I'm writing off B. God. I want it to be C, but no, sorry, Paris. I've seen you in Repo. And I remember House of Wax. I'm sorry. There were some very sneaky jokes in there about previous video appearances that she claimed was entirely unintentional and already in the script. So for me, it's between A and D, and I don't know, man. I will go with A.
It's actually B.
What?
The whole plot is that she plays the head of the sorority called Victoria English. I feel personally attacked. And there's some kind of weird thing where there's a group of diverse, lovely young girls whose house that they're going to be staying in as students has burnt down at the start of the film. So they need to find somewhere to live. So they decide to pledge for a sorority. And they get let in to Paris Hilton's sorority, not because she likes them, but because she wants to win, I think it's FHM's Sorority of the Year.
Oh, that is... this film is pretty dated.
And in order to win FHM's Sorority of the Year, they need to have a more diverse membership.
Wow. See, it goes far back.
It does.
This stuff started way, way back. Interesting.
But she also did snub the premiere of the film because she'd gone back and forth with the directors and producers. They wanted more nudity. They'd filmed various nude scenes with her and wanted to put them in the final release of the film. And she didn't want them to. And they went ahead and did them anyway. And she refused to go to the premieres.
Right. Okay.
So,
interesting.
There we go.
Huh. All right. You know, it makes me yearn for the days of Bring It On. You remember that?
I loved that film.
There was that rival team, and the white team went over and was like, "Please have money. We want you in anyway." And they were like, "No, we won't take your pity." I think that was the one with Eliza Dushku.
It was.
And Kirsten Dunst.
It was indeed. And
you haven't snuck that into the film down here, have you? You've not got that on the shelf somewhere.
If there's an incident, we'll have to do some kind of another incident. We'll have to do a stream about why that's actually a horror film.
Oh dear. All right, lovely. Well, thank you so much. Is there more in this, or is there another question?
There's a.
Did I do all right?
You
with
did
one correct answer.
One correct answer that we can't discuss in more detail on air, and one question that will just count as a write-off. Well, there's a second part to the quiz, but I thought we might come back to that later.
Okay. All right. Good.
So,
well,
yeah.
I'll thank you so much, I think, for that. And all right, we'll get back to good old Repo. Maybe we should do a little introduction to this wonderful film. There we go. Get the poster up. Get the poster for it. Yeah. See, they're not shy about it. From the producers of Saw.
They really aren't hiding that. And yet somehow that was a surprise to me when I saw it, when you pointed out who, yeah, it is Darren Bousman. I thought it was Derek for a second.
Yeah, so there is some interest for me in that, I'm not going to lie. So Darren Lynn Bousman, interesting chap. His connection to this is that he had previously directed the stage version of it once when this was touring. And he was, like many writers, he was trying to get his own things off the ground. When Saw was a massive hit in 2003, Lionsgate started cracking the whip on the old sequel machine. And they needed something quick. So they started looking around for scripts. And what they found for Saw 2 was a script by Darren Lynn Bousman, which was originally a standalone thing. And they just said, please, let's have your script and we'll turn it into a Saw film. We'll adapt it. And that's how he got brought in. And well, I'd be interested in knowing a little more about it, but the series creators, James Wan and Lee Wannell, they seem to want to spread out quite early. They didn't want to be the Saw guys.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. They know which, the trap that way lies. So Darren Lynn Bousman, from, I want to say like 3 onwards, becomes increasingly the Saw director, taking over. I think he carries it on until he directs him until, I want to say 6, when the editor of most of the Saw films, Kevin Goitert, takes over.
That's ringing bells, yeah.
And Kevin Goitert also does the editing on this. So this was kind of made towards the tail end of the Saw run. So I think there are about 6 or 7 Saw films in. No, 2008, there would be about 5 Saw films in. And evidently what I think is going on is Darren Lynn Bousman, having got a little bit of clout in Hollywood, making a lot of money for Lionsgate with the Saw sequels, says, hey, there's this other project I want to do. It's a little weird, but we can do it cheap. And he's got the connections, and they go ahead with it. But
not quite.
Oh, go on.
An interesting
give me
thing
more
that I discovered from my reading just now was that Lionsgate didn't actually initially want to finance it, and they didn't want to distribute it. So your boy Darren financed it himself initially, and he did a DIY promotional tour where he and various cast members would just rock up at colleges across the US to do a screening and a Q&A. to build hype, to build momentum. It's very much aimed at kind of cyberpunk goth kids.
It's a screening that the 10-minute sort of condensed version they produced, because I know they produced a 10-minute short example.
No, I think that was done before. I think it was literally the full film.
Ooh.
Or something. So I don't quite know how because he poured a lot of money into it, of his own money, and he didn't get a great return on investment. And so I think Lionsgate then picked it up to distribute after they saw that it was gaining a bit of momentum.
Okay.
That's the version I saw anyway.
You can tell it was not given a huge budget.
Certainly.
Not to be critical, it's firmly in the niche market. I mean, it says very much, it's really trying to go for that cult classic market. I mean, we've even got that on the poster there. And they're doing the tricks of trying to bring you in with the Saw references, and then just here are a load of cult figures you might be interested in, dangling the keys for you. So Anthony Stewart Head will raise quite a few eyebrows in there. I was certainly very happy to see him in this. Obviously brought on board because in Buffy he'd been flexing his singing skills quite a lot. But what?
He'd been flexing them. He probably needed to warm up a bit.
I love him in this. It's nice to see him flexing his ability, try the scary role. In this, he really sort of gives me the heebie-jeebies. I kind of want to call him Mr. GB in this. Maybe his little nickname there. But yeah, it's clearly aiming for the cult vibe. People like Bill Moseley will be attracting the real horror fans. If you know Saw, you're going to like Bill Moseley from that Texas Chainsaw Massacre era. And he has a huge amount of fun in this.
He does.
But this is hard to pitch to people. I described it as kind of a Arrested Development mishmash with Evanescence. And God, what was the third thing?
I mean, Saw meets Evanescence meets Arrested Development.
Yeah, that'll do it. That will do it. Yeah. There's a weird, intense comedy to it. There is all the techno goth aesthetics of. Yeah, I will stick with Evanescence as my main example, as there's two characters that strongly resemble the front woman.
That's very true.
The vibe is just straight out of the Daredevil trailer from back in the day. I realise that reference probably sails over your head. I'm old.
It does. It really does, I'm afraid.
Okay. And for Arrested Development, I think of the sort of weird comedy and the squabbling siblings in a mega corporation and the mild Wincest vibes going on throughout it.
To be fair, I did spend the first part of the film convinced that Bill Moseley was... I think I was mixing him up with the actor who plays Job or Gob in Arrested Development. I got it in my head that it was him and was trying to place him, and then realised that I'd got completely the wrong person.
There's a little bit of that in there.
Certainly those vibes. I mean, just because there's been an incident and we are now in the bunker doesn't mean we should drop the format completely.
All right, we'll go back to format. Go on.
So, and now, well, you need to...
What am I saying? We'll fix this in the
We'll fix this in post. You need to say it's now time to do the Guinness summary.
Okay.
There's no need for us to break the format here.
No, indeed. And of course, if you haven't seen Repo the Genetic Opera, we are going to do full spoilers for this. And we'll include the Guinness summary, the pint of Guinness summary, so you can follow roughly what's going on. Over to you.
And now it's time for me to summarise the film.
Summarise the film?
Summarise the film. And to summarise the film, I need to get a little bit spoilery.
Spoilery.
And the summary helps as the plot is rather mad.
Plot is rather mad?
The plot is rather mad, and you'll need to listen up for you to make sense of the lunacy.
Lunacy.
Which, if you haven't seen the film...
Are you pleased with yourself?
I'm very pleased with myself. I spent a while working on that one, and I'm very happy. So let's see what I can do with a Guinness pour. So, the setup is essentially that sometime in the early 21st century, thanks to decades of corruption and poor behaviour by big corpos, etc., around the world, an epidemic of organ failures began and wiped out essentially over 90% of the world's population.
YouTube, please don't give us one of those gay little notes at the bottom of this video. We're talking about a hypothetical situation, okay?
Indeed. So lots of people started dying dramatically. And one man rose out of nowhere with a brilliant idea. Essentially, you could get fresh organs on loan from his company GeneCo, and then you wouldn't die. That's all presented in the form of comic strips. We then follow. Oh God, I'm screwing this up already. It's just such a mad plot. Basically,
it is a nightmare to do these. Don't worry.
So, I thought I had it all straight in my head. So that's the setup. People are dying from organ failures. This guy comes along and is like, hey, if you take out a loan with my company, I'll give you a new liver, heart, spleen, whatever. As long as you keep up payments. If you don't keep up payments, then the repo guy, the repo man, will come and reclaim your assets, whether or not it kills you. So that's the premise. We then follow a young girl called Shiloh, who's very innocent, but has been sneaking out of her father's house, where she's sort of being kept kind of under lock and key. The only place she ever goes is to her mother's tomb to look at bugs for reasons. And she is the kind of protagonist through which we explore this peculiar world, sort of. So, wow, yeah, it is just the more you try and explain it, the more it gets peculiar.
It's kind of a vibe. We just sort of ride it and let stuff occur. But,
yeah.
No, carry on, you're doing great.
So she's kind of looking at in this graveyard, encounters some guy who's singing about the things you see in a graveyard, whilst, in fact, it is this guy in the centre of the screen.
This chap.
This chap. He's collecting this drug through the noses of corpses, and she sees him, and then they get chased by some dark masked figures, and she's truly shocked by everything she's seen, but then collapses because she's got a heart condition, and she next wakes up in her bed with her father leaning over her saying, "You didn't take your medicine," and telling her that everything she thought she saw was just a fever dream because she's so unwell. At the same time, we then cut to the head of the GeneCo, who is frustrated with his degenerate family.
I've brought him up here. This was a highlight for me. It's Paul Sorvino from Romeo plus Juliet.
And I think also various mobster films.
Possibly. That's not my area of interest. Sort of gruesome horror films and, 90s cheesy schlock.
Basically, you just like shirtless Leo DiCaprio, don't you?
Moving on.
Guilty as charged. I'll try and speed up the plot summary because otherwise we will be here almost as long as the film. Basically, he is looking around at his degenerate 3 children and thinking, I can't pass my company on to them. So then we go into exposition, which is delivered in the form of yet more comic strips, which explains that he was actually formerly in love with a woman called Marnie, who is wimpy teenager's dead mother. Marnie left him to marry her father, who is played by Anthony Stewart Head, who we sort of think at this point, allegedly, is a nice, charming doctor who just keeps his daughter locked up. So we learn that he has this guy on a tight leash and is actually using him as one of his repo men. Your boy Rotti Largo, the mob boss, essentially, of GeneCo, has got Anthony Stewart Head under his thumb because Anthony Stewart Head thinks he's entirely responsible for murdering his wife in an attempt to save his baby daughter's life. That's backstory. Again, all delivered in the form of random comic book settings because they clearly slightly ran out of time to deliver all this exposition in a way that would have made more sense.
You told me there was about an hour cut out from the script.
Yes.
Which may explain some of the use of the comic strips.
Yes, that's what I'd read, is that essentially the original version of this used to be a stage play. and potentially was a lot longer. There were lots more songs cut out of it, apparently. And so I think they condensed it down. Terence Zdunich, who's one of the original writers and is also the grave robber in this, was...
I'll get him up again.
Oh, please do.
I know you'll appreciate that.
I do. So I think he's also an illustrator. So he did the kind of comic books. It's sort of...
It's like the Lost Boys got dropped in San Francisco. I'm struggling with it. Sorry.
It's a strong aesthetic. So anyway, that's sort of the premise as far as you can kind of understand it. Rotti Largo then decides that actually the best person to inherit his company is Shiloh, the daughter of this woman whose murder he's been covering up for years. And he also wants to kind of lure her out of the house and out of her father's control. She duly gets lured out of the house and out of her father's control. And then it just becomes a kind of weird fever dream of things happening and things happening and things happening. They're at a Italian Renaissance fair circus type event with lots of androgynous and questionable people.
Yeah, why were they taken there? I got very confused. It seemed to be like the backstage of a big presentation, which I think then went on the next night. I got very confused, and I'll fully confess that I sort of had a problem that when they start singing, I ended up kind of tuning it out. Just there was a lot going on. There's a lot going on, and to be fair, I mean, you'll have tuned out most of the film then because they didn't really speak at any point. They've tried to stick to a more operatic tradition in which everything is delivered musically, which is a shame because it's not the best. Well, they've got excellent songs. I think they should have stuck to more of like a musical theatre format with songs interspersed with acting followed by songs. It was ambitious of them to kind of go down the operatic route, but I'm not sure it worked out in practice. But yeah. And it does result in an unending intensity that makes it quite, I just want to say overwhelming. I felt overwhelmed towards the end by the big finale. I was kind of visually and hourly exhausted. Yes, it doesn't really give you any lull or any chance to build up or down. And also, I think essentially they found ways to manage the fact that the plot, because of how much they'd cut out, was just completely incoherent by just having the grave robber pop up at random points to move people to where they needed to be effectively. So they visit this circus fair thing, Shiloh and Rotti Largo and his family. She's introduced to this singer Blind Mag who she idolizes, who's got peculiar eyes because she was the recipient of a techno corneal transplant from GeneCo. So her eyes are kind of magic, essentially. That does look amazing. It does look amazing. And Sarah Brightman plays Blind Mag and just nails whatever it is that she's doing. She does well. I mean, she's game for it. It's probably the weirdest thing she's ever been in, but kudos, she threw herself into it. Yep. Yeah. And then for some reason, after they've met Blind Mag, our girl Shiloh is left alone in a tent with a load of surgical equipment, and the grave robber pops his head through the back of the tent, and then she goes, "Help, I need to get back to my father's house before he finds out I'm gone." There's quite a good scene in which she's on they're communicating via like holographic Apple Watches, essentially. And her father, Anthony Stewart Head, is trying to play off to her that he's just a doctor, he's not a repo guy. So he's, you know, a good guy. And she's trying to pretend that she is definitely behaving herself and she's staying at home and being a good girl. So there's quite a good song where they're both kind of going, "What was that?" in the background. And the other one goes, "Oh, just a patient. Is he going to make it?" Doubtful. Yeah. She's lying about about being out of the house. He's lying about disemboweling a dude. You know, we should all be honest with our family members, particularly about our hobbies and extracurricular activities. But yeah, so she realizes she needs to get home because her dad's going to get home to check on her. So the grave robber, who's only seen her once in a graveyard, becomes her sort of guide / protector. It's not a great decision on her part, but he leads her into a kind of
underground alleyway where my favourite interaction of the whole film occurs, in which I don't think she's actually featured in this screenshot, but a random Hua approaches our girl Shiloh, and I think maybe asks a question like, have you had surgery? But I don't think she even starts with asking that question. I think she just goes straight in with the, I had my first surgery at 13. Zydrate helped me. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't remember anything afterwards. A month later, I was turning tricks. No context. No explanation.
Well, I've spent a long time on YouTube, and I gather it's absolutely totally fine for 13-year-olds to make life-changing surgeries. It clearly works out all well.
Absolutely.
This film is just propaganda.
It's true. It's so true. What could possibly go wrong?
You just want to get to that bit because it is the best bit in the whole film.
Essentially, it's the only reason I ever watched the film is for the song that comes next, which, if you haven't heard it, is the one we were referencing earlier. It's called Zydrate Anatomy. You should go and watch it.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't go and watch it unless you need to remember no other songs for the rest of the day, because that will just be, you'll be playing that on repeat.
It's brilliant as well, because if you look through the comments, anytime someone references a line from the song, the comment thread just, everyone responds with the same call and response from the song. It's brilliant. I think it's the main reason this is a cult classic, is just for that absolute banger of a song.
It did make me think a lot of, I mean, sorry, I'm cutting off your summary a bit, but
I think we've given up on this. Guinness is overflowing. The pub is flooded.
We flooded the bunker with Guinness.
Oh, no. Poor Ted.
Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, it really did remind me of that Rocky Horror vibe, where it's a musical, yeah, but there's really only, say, a couple of bangers out there that people really enjoy, and the rest of them you're not really there for. I mean, you're there for Touch It, Touch Me,
Sweet Transvestite.
What are the other?
Maybe The Time Warp, but that one, I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm not as big a fan of that, but and of course, double feature picture show.
Double feature, yeah. Science fiction double feature.
Maybe that science fiction double feature. The opening one with the lips. You know the one, guys.
And in fact, there's a fun parody of it somewhere on this channel, unless you've buried that from existence.
Oh heck no, no. That's what you see if you go on my channel page. Is you get my tribute to science fiction double feature. Which, if you haven't seen, do check that out. That is a labour of love. That marks the first time I started abusing people on Fiverr to make my weird little songs.
Yes, I'm glad you didn't make me sing that one.
That would have been a relief, given the stuff I did make you sing. But we'll move on from that. Effectively, the plots, like the motivations, is Shiloh is seeking a cure, which is why she does what Rotilago says. Rotilago is wanting to sort of transfer the company to Shiloh because his kids are useless, and also get his revenge on Shiloh's dad, Nathan, because Nathan stole Marnie away from Rotilago, and Nathan is basically blackmailed by Rotilago into being the Repo Man.
Yes, that's essentially it.
And then just chaos is swirling around that, with exposition cannons blasting in all directions.
So much of it just... They got some great... In my mind, they've got some great ideas for an interesting plot and a potentially intriguing film. But they've got slightly too many of them. And they didn't really think about how to... If they were removing about an hour's worth of material from the original script, I don't think they did it effectively enough to then help you actually follow the plot through logically. Like, I saw this film, part of the reason I've got such a soft spot for this film is that not only did me and my friends used to just do a lunchtime performance of Zydrate Anatomy, or just greet each other with lines from the song at sixth form, but it became the kind of film we'd watch at parties, which meant that I was under the influence of various substances. Mainly alcohol, only alcohol.
Are you self-reporting?
I'm not. I'm accidental.
Alcohol, Zydrate.
The only substance was alcohol. But yeah, we'd shove this on and watch it. Occasionally it would be the sort of staple of Halloween parties. And to be honest, with my set of friends, most parties were Halloween themed parties anyway. So it's got that kind of vibe for me. But I never really understood the plot because I was never really paying attention to the plot. Half the time I was just watching it, waiting for Zydrate Anatomy to kick in.
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, there is a lot going on, but people are just telling it to you very loudly in opera with just 2000s sort of, what would you call it? I don't want to say new metal. I can just think of that sort of Evanescence.
It is
style.
kind of metal-ish.
Operatic metal.
Yeah,
maybe?
it describes itself as a rock opera, I think.
Yeah.
So it's trying to do something. But yes, the music, it's got a few potentially quite good bangers. Lots of people like there's a couple that Anthony Stewart Head sings. And to be fair to him, I'm critical of his singing. He's not the world's greatest singer, but he puts his all into it. He does his best.
Yeah, I don't have the musical standards you have. I'm basically tone deaf. So he sounded fantastic to me. I thought Alexa Vega was pretty darn good in it. The only one I noticed struggling was Bill Moseley, where it seemed like every one of his bits had been ADR'd over and really didn't quite match what he was singing. Like he stood out to me.
Yeah, I think that was definitely true. And then Sarah Brightman puts everyone to shame because she's a phenomenal singer.
Yeah, her character seemed the most tertiary to every, like,
yeah,
she could have been written out completely, to be honest, because she doesn't really give any impact on the main story, aside from being further evidence that Nathan has been keeping something from Shiloh. And she's there for Amber Sweet, Rotilago's daughter, to rival with, but realistically, she could have been cut out, and Amber's storyline could have just proceeded as is.
Yeah,
if we're being brutal.
Difference.
But on the other hand, I really liked Sarah Brightman, so I'm not going to complain too much.
Yeah, and the effect with the eyes was pretty impressive. So it's an odd film. I mean, I was looking up some theories about it, essentially, and I feel like I'm trying to think, like, what is the film trying to say, if anything? Is it trying to say anything at all? And some reviewers I saw were like, it's all about freedom to choose, like the human freedom of choice is like the ultimate virtue, because Shiloh is prevented from choosing her own destiny, and then at the end she walks away from being offered this phenomenally powerful position. So that's one reading. A really basic one is that it's essentially about the opioid crisis.
I guess. I mean, it would be very ahead of its time. You know, that I believe didn't really kick off as a news story until a couple of years ago, if I'm right. I could be wrong.
Americans correct us in the chat. I don't think it kicked off so much as a news story, but it's definitely been going on for decades. I think it's more that it became a news story in terms of realizing that the sort of Big Pharma, who we love, YouTube, we love Big Pharma, we're fans of Big Pharma, they
and all their products
anyway, they were very generous to people who wanted access to opioids, and that in no way had a negative impact on small town American life for decades. But yeah, possibly it's a case that, you know, the sort of the role of those companies and that kind of corruption has only come to light in the last few years. But I think the opioid crisis, in terms of people getting addicted via prescription drugs, has been going on certainly in the US for a long time.
I think what I see is that classic 2000s, like very Jon Stewart liberal concern about the big evil corporation.
Yeah.
Which does feel like a little dead now. Like the focus on that has bizarrely gone away. But back in the day, that would have been the concern, the big evil corpo that has too much power, especially in the line of, say, healthcare and the power of that. So if they've got all this control over you, all this power over you, you're basically a slave to the corpos who control everything. Why don't they just have your organs too.
Yeah.
And just a satirical exaggeration of that trend.
That they literally have, yeah, it's not so much they own your soul as they own crucial aspects of your body. And literally at various points when Anthony Stewart Head rips out, he rips out someone's spine at one point, and there's a barcode stamped across it. Various hearts with barcodes on crop up. So it sort of adds to the aesthetic and also adds to the potentially not very subtle metaphor.
I think they were also clearly doing, I'd say, quite a good job of the idea of that. Again, a very popular liberal target, the corrupt elite, the dynasty where you've got the unworthy inheritors, etc. Nowadays, that focus goes, the Trump family get that a lot. Like, look at the guy was successful, but look at the rotters beneath. Or on the other side, there'd be, there's Joe Biden, but look at Hunter, etc.
There's nothing you can say wrong about Hunter. He's a stand-up chap.
I think
I've been told by the media.
I remember that storyline with the Murdochs as well. It's kind of the classic thing that happens. And it's, in fairness, like, it's not untrue.
Your guy, Robert Maxwell.
Robert Maxwell, yeah. Some rotten apples falling from there, although Robert Maxwell himself, fairly corrupt, although a bit beyond the focus of this stream. But yeah, it's not wrong, that issue of you, if you're super successful, if you have all your wants and needs taken care of, and you want to sort of lavish affection and attention and rewards on your kids, you might wreck them. Decent chance you might wreck them. Weirdly enough, that was kind of a theme that came up in Zardoz as well, about genuinely, it's one of the great things in it, is that this society where everything is perfect. Illness isn't a problem, death isn't a problem, sustenance isn't a problem. You get people so bored and so twisted by, I guess, a sort of lack of any urgency in their life, and it has a really corrupting influence on them. You see people just sort of robbed of their will. It's a really nice point in that film. So I think they're doing that a bit.
Yeah, I think there's one interesting thing I did see in a blog from someone reviewing or like trying to explain why she really enjoys Repo, was talking about the fact that arguably the role of Shiloh is potentially more interesting than she at first appears, because she is kind of a complete innocent. She's been kept very secluded, literally locked in her room, and her bed has got kind of plastic coating around it. It's a sort of, clearly she's presented as extremely vulnerable, although it turns out that her father has been possibly drugging her to make her think that she is. So details. She's had this extremely limited exposure to the world. She doesn't see the corruption. On the first encounter we have with her, she's, in her mother's tomb, hears a noise outside, or she's following one of these bugs outside. Anyway, gets out into the graveyard. And that's the sort of first big shock for her, is first of all seeing the grave robber literally digging up bodies so that he can collect this illegal drug, Zydrate, which goes in a little glass vial.
A little glass vial?
Let's not go back down that route. So he's collecting this illegal street drug. So she's shocked, first of all, by witnessing someone digging up a corpse and treating it very cavalierly. But then when they get chased by the sort of equivalent of the cops, they sort of burst through this wall into, oh yeah, that was it. Grave robber uses a body as a battering ram. There's a dark humour to this whole film.
Schlocky would not be unfair.
Schlocky is a very accurate description. So he uses this corpse as a battering ram to break through a stone wall. Let's gloss over the physics of that. And it's just a mass grave of loads of rotting corpses. And so Shiloh, that's a very blunt metaphor for kind of Shiloh's role in this. She's the kind of naive innocent being exposed to the corruption and the filth that she's been able to live isolated from. And that potentially there's something going on there with the film talking about, people are able to live sort of elevated from the filth, but the filth is what fuels their wealth and their privilege. And so it's all about that kind of symbiotic relationship, but it's a lot easier and more comfortable to be blind to it. And it would be great. I feel like that reading would have a lot more coherence if Shiloh at any point seemed to kind of reject the premise of the world and go, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live with people renting out their organs. Instead, she's just kind of like, that's fine. I want a cure for my blood disease.
Well, you know, that aspect, it does put the film in some interesting territory, because do you look at it and say, oh, okay, is a sort of capitalism gone too far, or is this a freedom of choice gone too far? Because GeneCo it's really running on the perfectibility of humans. They don't just do unhealthy organs that you need to live. They do enhancements. It's a very transhuman idea of perfecting and improving on the humans. And you see the horrible consequences of that in the film. And do you take from that, okay, maybe limitless freedom isn't really the way to go? Or do you have to take it on, oh, this is absolutely fine, like Cyborg is the way to go, just it should be state funded and free to all.
Yeah, I suppose it's a question of, is Repo secretly based or not? Or is it
I suspect we would not find a coherent through line in that. It's focused, you know what? It's focused on being a jolly good opera. That's what it's focused on.
Unfortunately, it doesn't really manage to be it's focused on being a jolly good time.
Yes, yes. I mean,
through the medium of opera. I mean, it's, you know, kudos to the ambition. You had a thing you said about it earlier.
Yeah, like about that, it is, I found it quite exhausting, but I was at no point bored. And that seems like a low bar. What I'd take away from this is one of those films that is so distinctive a vision, so unfiltered. It feels like they would probably protest and say, no, we got studio meddling, but it feels like it was not meddled with. Like, this is someone's very passionate vision of what they wanted in their film, from the sort of weird photography style where everything feels like it's got that sort of RuPaul season 1 drag race glaze on it.
Vaseline on the camera lens.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is it feels like such a distinctive vision. Like, this is going to be the film that, for someone, it ticks every single box they could have. And for them, it's going to be the full 13 out of 12 burger score. This is going to be everything they could ever want. So much so that for most people encountering Repo, it's going to be confusing and a slog and probably land in the 4 burgers. And they're not going to know what's going on. And I like it. I'm good. That's what I want more of. I've said repeatedly, I want films to be more specific and to appeal to a narrower range and be done cheaper, so that we have so many more films at different audiences, rather than a couple of 300 million behemoths that have to be turned into absolute gloop so that they can not offend anyone and broadly satisfy most people, who will come out of it and say, well, that was a movie with a plot.
Yes, it's the kind of thing where it would be, it's a good point though. It would be, if there were more films like that, it'd be kind of great to see, for example, when you get to the scoring part of your normal streams, when it's safe to go back out of the bunker, you know, to have films where you've got that huge polarization of some people going, what the heck was this? I hated it. Why did you make me watch it? And then a similar proportion of people going, this was incredible. This lit up every dopamine spark in my body. I want more just like this. Because you'd be having a good time.
Totally. I want, like, for me, it's Mulholland Drive, it's Ed Wood, it's these really distinctive things that people cannot stand. Candyman, that's a weird vision that if you go in as a pure horror fan, you'll probably think, this is boring, it's not that scary, why is it all in daylight? Don't care. For me, those are absolute bangers. Even if they infuriate other people, I want more like this.
And I would also say Repo is probably close to being one of those for me. I've got some criticisms of it, but I've got a huge soft spot for it as well. I don't know what it's trying to do. I don't think they know what they're trying to do. But they're having a very, very good time doing it. And they also know their horror references. Two things have just occurred to me, one of which might be a reach. The first one, we both pointed it out. You see Anthony Stewart Head in the sort of first part, first time you really see him properly. He's in this kind of slightly old man cardigan. It's a nice stylish cardigan, but it's a cardigan. And his hair's sort of forward and he's in glasses and he looks kind of anxious and worried and he's full dad mode. And then when he gets into kind of Repo, not Reaper, although I guess that's what they're doing. That was a pun that it has taken me 16 years to realise.
Oh dear.
I went to a very prestigious university and I read English literature. You'd think I'd spot puns. Anyway.
They aren't sending their best.
They're really not, certainly not anymore.
You were saying?
I was saying, when he goes into Repo Man mode, he slicks his hair back and he puts on this kind of slightly straitjacket-esque leather coat. You can't really see it in that picture, but there's a couple of moments when you see it and it looks, and he looks, just like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. Very, like, they've actually got quite similar faces, and particularly with the hair kind of slicked back and in that sort of slightly straitjacket costume. They're clearly referencing that, and obviously, you know, Hannibal Lecter also had a fairly flexible attitude to the placement of other people's internal organs. So, you know, nice vibes. And the other thing that, again, might be a reach, but if you look in the background of that picture, Le yeux son visage.
Yeah, I could possibly read that as a Eyes Without a Face reference. So we've had this guy on screen long enough. That's, what is it, Pavilargo?
Yeah.
Who, this did not mean anything to me, but is portrayed by a chap by the name of Ogre from a band called Skinny Puppy.
Yes.
It doesn't mean anything to me, I'm afraid. But again, cult movie. Someone saw that and went, I have to see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just straight up wears other people's faces the whole time.
It's quite bizarre. But yeah. So I did wonder whether that's a particular reference. But it's certainly, it's a film that's, I think, if you went through it with a tooth comb, you could find some references to lots of other things.
I think a little more Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw, because he literally, I mean, this was made 5 years after the Platinum Dunes remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And in that, there's a much more direct, just wearing someone's face as a mask. Well, it's quite fresh.
Oh, okay.
But at the same time, it's a striking image. He's played extremely camply.
He is indeed.
Playing off, oh gosh, darn it, him, the guy. I'm going to have to get the post. Bill Moseley. Gosh darn it, that took ages. Was he Luigi?
Yes.
Yeah, Luigi, who is just pure fury. They play off each other. They have spats, but he's kind of doing his own very weird thing.
Yes.
But the star of it, the one with the clearest purpose, has got to be Paris Hilton as Amber Sweet.
She's addicted to the knife.
Addicted to the knife.
Addicted to the knife. And addicted to the knife. She didn't. No.
No. Gotta clamp it down.
Her sort of main motivation is wanting just more and more surgery. So she has at least 3 different facial surgeries during the course of the film. She's, I mean, for all that she got a Razzie for her role in this film, I think she didn't deserve it. I think she did, given what she was working with and that she's not a professional actor, I think she did a pretty good job. And again, sort of like in House of Wax, quite a good job at sending herself up.
I think she's having fun in it. I don't think she's at all the worst actor in this.
No.
No, what did she do wrong? I think even the singing sounded okay to me. I thought she had a stronger presence.
Yeah, I think she's certainly, weirdly, given that Alexa Vega, who plays Shiloh, I think also is a singer, as evidenced by the really cringy number 17.
Wasn't a fan.
Just, there's a random bit in the middle of the film where the Shiloh basically sings a song to her father about how she's 17, she's a slag now, and she's daddy's little monster, and flips him off. And then, quite rightly, he slaps her around the face and knocks her to the floor.
Based Anthony Stewart Head.
This film is based. It's about controlling women. What have I become? Yeah, I think actually in a couple of points, Paris Hilton does a better job with the musical numbers she's got than Shiloh does, Alexa Vega. But I think some of that is because they allowed her to have quite a sort of stylized. She's not supposed to be. I'm going to sound like a friend of ours who watched Star Wars and went, "It's not supposed to be good, guys." I don't think she's supposed to be a good singer. I think that's part of the joke, but it kind of ties into her. Yeah, sending herself up.
She's got the rivalry with Sarah Brightman's character Blind Mag. She wants that spotlight, and I mean, her storyline is really all building up to the one gag, really, when her face falls off during a performance.
Yep.
I'm reminded of, what's this, the Oscar Wilde quote? "Fame is a mask that eats at the face."
Oh.
And she's ultimately left, with the face eaten away at, gone.
Nice.
I wonder if they were trying to get to that. It is the pursuit of fame and the notoriety leaves her extremely unhappy with herself, hence her constantly going for surgeries because she's addicted to the knife.
She's addicted to the knife. Someone if you haven't seen it before and you then go and watch a clip of Zydrate Anatomy, or if you have seen Zydrate Anatomy before, which is the best song in the whole darn film, you'll spot in the comments that lots of people point out that Shiloh's character seems a lot more shocked by the fact that Zydrate comes in a little glass vial than she is about the fact that Amber Sweet is addicted to the knife. That won't mean much to you until you've seen the song, so go and watch it after this. Do we feel like we've...
I don't think you can capture the essence of this wonderful film in words, no matter how long we talk for. It really is an experience that has to be encountered. But I just want to get out there that I thought Paris Hilton did a really good job in it. I liked what she was doing. You don't get much of a sense of closure because apparently this is meant to be the middle part of a trilogy, and they hoped it would be a big enough success that they could then fill in the rest. But
that's a shame.
It doesn't seem to have happened, but it almost adds to the weirdness that it is this deliberately incomplete story.
Yeah, Shiloh literally just walks off into a blaze of paparazzi camera lights and gets in a car.
They had the co-creator of the original musical, Terence
Stunich.
Thank you.
I guess.
It's a special name. He recorded that last bit at the end. He recorded sort of months after everything else to try and close things off a bit.
Yes, his role is basically Mr. Exposition in a very sort of cyberpunk costume.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of bits where he just pops up and sings a random song to try and explain what the heck is going on.
If you're wondering why he looked so different in that ending scene, that is why, because in months afterwards.
I did wonder.
And that I said this while we're watching because it just annoyed me. I saw this originally when it came to me via Love Film. You know how it was back in the day, guys. You'd put on about 200 different things onto your list. And it arrived and it, was quite an experience back then. It has been a very long time since I saw it, as you can probably work out from referencing Love Film. But one thing that stuck in my head was a sequence when the GeneCo guards come to try and bring Nathan in, and he's basically, as any film from the 2000s has to do, has a lone hero in leather just taking out waves of masked guards. We never get tired of that. But in the version we saw when we rewatched it on Amazon, that sequence was entirely gone because it is burned into my head. Nathan going through a corridor underground, being attacked by wave after wave of the guards, but only ever 2 of them because that's how many stuntmen they had. So it's the same 2 stuntmen being killed over and over again. And that sequence was completely gone. And I was just waiting for it to turn up in the whole film.
Possibly it's gone because they realised how naff it looked. But I feel like naff is part of the aesthetic of this film.
Yeah, naff, cheesy. It's thrown in there. The sort of weird photography style, the extreme tinting, very weird, cool red and blue. Yeah, it's a very unique vision, as we said. But yeah, our description will not do it justice. You really have to see it for yourself.
I think if we're ready to sort of do scores on the doors, I have one final Paris Hilton inspired
Oh, right. Lovely, lovely.
game that when chat are watching, you can join in with this.
All right.
Inspired by Paris Hilton's iconic film, The Hottie or The Nottie. We're going to play a round of Hottie or Nottie, otherwise known as Would or Wouldn't Woodability.
WWYD has arrived on Double Feature Horror Show. Fantastic.
So,
okay.
First contestant, please.
All right. Oh, wait, that's her?
Yep.
Hang on, no, I'm really uncomfortable. Right, so that's on the left is Alexa Vega in Spy Kids.
Yep.
And on the right is her on her way to the seventh circle of hell, right?
Yes. That's a thing
Is that real?
I Googled her name and that's what Google Images presented me with.
I never knew she was blonde.
I mean, no comment. For anyone who didn't know, the main character in Repo, played by Alexa Vega, Alexa Vega was also in the first 4 Spy Kids films, and I didn't know there were more than 4. So we've all learned something tonight. Anyway.
Like the Home Alone series, more than you'd think.
Decide which side of the image you're voting on.
Chat, you make your own choices. It's a no from me. I think you biased this by putting a kid picture on there because now I'm very disturbed by this combo. Can we move on?
Yes.
I don't feel like answering any of these. Anthony Stewart Head has his own unique appeal, I think.
Absolute hot. Absolutely would.
I think you watch him in Buffy, it does this to you, you know?
Yep.
Did he ever turn up an angel? Did he? Did he ever turn up an angel? Obviously Wesley did. Did he?
I don't know that he did.
No. Anyway, all right. Oh, it's a strong word.
It's a strong word.
Only for the serenade.
Yeah, Cremaggia.
Yeah. What?
That's the name of the song. I don't know if you picked up on that because there was a lot going on.
There was a heck of a lot. I mean, the summary of this, if you're trying to straighten out the plot in your head, just gives you the song names after each thing that happens. They are largely exposition. Okay.
That's Paris Hilton.
Really?
Yep. I went for
based in halal.
I went for a very halal picture of Paris Hilton.
Inshallah, she is the hottie.
Exactly. I thought it would make a change from other pictures that are available of her.
It's a no from me.
Inshallah.
Far too many men have stayed in a Hilton.
Oh no, that was unkind.
Is that? Oh, what? Oh, it's Bill Moseley.
Yeah.
He's looking gruff.
Yeah, nice Silver Fox vibes.
Why wasn't he Joel in The Last of Us? It'd have been great.
It's a fair point.
Not for me.
No.
No silver foxing.
Based cigar?
Can I have the cigar? I want the cigar. It's a yes to the cigar.
And the next one.
That's a no.
It's Terence Stinich.
That's a no. Also, no, I will not be booking him for my children's party. I'm sorry. You're a very talented man, Mr. Stinich. You're a very talented man.
Well, according to the rest of the internet and a subreddit called r/ladyboners, you're wrong.
Why?
He is in fact a strong word. If you skip to the next slide.
Okay. Oh, okay. He went for the Darren Brown look. Okay, yeah. Look, anyone can be. You get the wrong angle. No one can survive a bad angle. Yeah, yeah.
And there's a general consensus, particularly on
it's looking good.
The YouTube video for Zydrate Anatomy. There is a strong consensus that as grave robber, he's a definite would. Lesbians are turning for him. Men are turning gay for him. Just everyone is a fan. And the people who are not a fan are in a minority.
You know, given his character's name, The Grave Robber, I am reminded of the famous postmodern essay, Is the anus a grave? But we'll move away from literary criticism and go on to a score. Shall we get him back on in all his glory?
Yes, please.
There we go.
That's my man.
Yeah. All right. Scores on the doors as we close up a bunker stream.
I'm gonna be
decidedly degenerate bunker stream.
The plot is incoherent. There's no characterization. There's literally no one to feel any empathy with. No one knows what the heck is going on. The music is all over the place, and I have strong criticisms about a lot of it. And yet it's still a 10 out of 12 burgers for me, with a lot of ketchup flowing liberally, sort of in more places than you'd expect. And it's strangely addictive meat, delivered by an oddly attractive waiter.
Fair play. Oh, it's a strong... Okay, I mean, for me, it comes out maybe about a 6, which is still... It's still on the do watch side. It's a caution. This is one where I'd say take a chance on this because you might love it. You might absolutely love it if you have been if you like your Saw, if you like your Rocky Horror Picture Show, you might go for it. It's a 2 or a 12, and tell you what, after about 20 minutes, you'll probably know which one it is for you. So yeah, I would recommend people try it out.
Yeah,
6 burgers. Loads of ketchup, definitely some cheese in there, and I think there may be a jalapeno buried in there because you can probably detect a little bit of spice in this movie if you're looking for it.
I think that's a nice way of putting it.
All
it
right.
has also struck me that in that particular still frame, he looks like a really unimpressed Julian Clary.
Cannot unsee.
Which is, again, a reference that only the British will get.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
So on that note...
On that note, indeed, okay, well, hopefully we can check the alarm systems, see if it's okay to go back outside again. We can abandon the bunker, and hopefully next time the movie list will be restocked. That was a sneaky ploy you tried there, waifu. Very sneaky indeed.
I've restocked it with 100 copies of Bring It On. Because I want you to review that on this channel now. That is my next mission. Stream 150. It's got to be done.
All right, folks. And whatever we were going to do instead of this next week, hopefully it'll play. My April is extremely chaotic. Unless it wasn't. Maybe I've dropped this as a rogue stream on a Saturday as a treat for you. Maybe it's a member bonus. Who knows? I'm in the bunker. I can't tell. All right. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, waifu.
You're welcome.
And folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I'll leave it here. Thanks, y'all. Tschüss.